Feeling nervous about asking a woman out is a universal experience nearly every guy on the planet can relate to. When you see a pretty girl and start contemplating talking to her, you might feel your palms sweating as you ask yourself, what do I say? What if she doesn't think I'm attractive enough? What if she only likes men that are rich? However, men without these qualities still get women. And in today's video, I'm going to show you how they do it. Think about the men in movies and TV shows that are great at getting women, like James Bond and Tony Stark. They're exceedingly charismatic and confident in themselves, which is a huge turn on for women. Now, I know you could argue that money plays a part in their success with the opposite gender, but Joey Tribbiani from Friends was also a world-class flirt. And I'm sure you know at least one player that doesn't have a lot of money either. The truth is, women feed off your energy when talking to you. In other words, if you approach a woman as a ball of nerves, she's going to immediately sense that and conclude it's because she's too good for you. On the other hand, if you're confident when you first meet, it'll show that you consider yourself a high-value man, and she'll get the same message. But I get it. Approaching a woman with confidence is much easier said than done. After all, if you say or do the wrong thing, you could mess up your chances with her forever. Now, let's unpack that for a second. If what I just said sounds familiar to your thought process before asking a woman out, then you're probably putting her on a pedestal, and that's a huge mistake. The reason guys often have a hard time asking women they like out is because they've created an idealized version of her in their heads. You've probably already pictured how perfect your life would be if you could date her, or you absolutely love her body and want to sleep with her. However, the problem with these fantasies is that it makes you feel like there's a lot on the line, and you start to think, please don't mess up, please don't mess up. Don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you shouldn't talk to women you find attractive, but you need to always keep it in the back of your mind that she's just a girl and there are millions of them out there. If you realise that you tend to put women on a pedestal, another reason you might be finding it difficult to pick up girls is that you try too hard. Yes, I know this tip can sound counterproductive when you're trying to get a girl. After all, shouldn't you be pulling out all the stops to get the woman of your dreams? The issue is that just like a man with no confidence, women can spot when a guy is trying to impress them from a mile away before a girl even turns 18. Men are constantly trying to get her attention with money, flashy cars, and fancy jobs. So when a guy approaches a woman ready with a PowerPoint presentation on why he's a great catch, he runs the risk of boring her. It's like getting assaulted by yet another insurance salesman. It doesn't matter how good their deals are, the fact you've spoken to one too many of them makes them distasteful. However, if you make a new friend at the gym and start talking because you have the same hobby, you might be open to buying from them if you find out later that they sell insurance. Speaking of hobbies, do you have any? In my video on 8 things women find attractive that men have no idea about, I talked about how girls love it when a guy is passionate about something. And I'm not talking about generic things, like watching sports and video games. I mean exciting activities like swimming, cooking, or learning a new language. When you're interested in doing other things to develop yourself, it can be extremely appealing because it shows that you have other interests. On that note, developing yourself also refers to having ambition. Do you have any professional goals, or are you just going with the flow? Listen, I know I said that women aren't impressed by flashy titles and money, but if you want her to consider dating you, then you need to show drive. You may not be a CEO or on Forbes' top 10 richest men list, but having a job and financial stability will make picking up women a lot easier. Another reason I think developing yourself is important is because it also improves your self-respect. When you have goals and hobbies you're passionate about, you're less likely to hyperfixate on a woman, especially if she has already rejected you. Too many guys think they can wear down a woman by calling her several times a day or sending multiple texts, but that just screams neediness, and women aren't attracted to that. Let me give you an example. Imagine a woman goes to the bar and gives 2 different guys her number. When she wakes up the next day, she realizes that the first guy, let's call him Alfred, has already tried to call her twice and left several texts. Remember, this man is still practically a stranger, so to her, it's going to come across as heavy-handed. Plus, it reeks of desperation and a lack of nothing better to do. On the other hand, she doesn't hear from the other guy, Ben, until later in the afternoon, when he's on his lunch break, and his text is a simple check-in with a reference to one of their previous conversations. Which of these 2 guys do you think she's more likely to want to go out with? The answer is obvious. Now, let's move on to the next point. It might sound crazy, but I've found that some guys struggle to get girls because they don't pay enough attention. Maybe it's even happened to you before, where you walked away from a conversation and couldn't remember everything the other person said because you were thinking about something else while they were talking. The truth is, when you get in your own head or put a woman on a pedestal, you can easily get swept up in her looks or focus too much on trying to remember a pickup line you memorized. When you approach girls like that, there's no way you can be fully present. That means you might miss vital information that could help you in future conversations. Besides that, women can also pick up on it when you're not paying attention, which causes them to lose interest and move on. So while you're hyperfixating on what you should say next, you could miss out on a girl you've already started a conversation with. In the same vein, once you've figured out how to pay attention and get out of your head, focus on having a good time in the moment. Once you take a woman off a pedestal, she becomes just another girl, which can boost your confidence and reduce your nerves. At the same time, you don't want to approach your conversations like you don't care at all, instead of focusing on the end result. Prioritize enjoying your interaction. The reason this tip is important is that it'll come off as enthusiasm, which can be contagious. If you're excited to talk to her, she'll be excited to talk to you. Besides, if your priority is just having fun, like when you're hanging out with your buddies, you'll be less worried about impressing her. Plus, it'll hurt a lot less if she rejects you. And yes, rejection is always a possibility when you approach a woman, and you just have to be okay with that. However, the more you practice talking to girls, the easier it gets. Imagine starting a conversation with one woman every week for an entire year. Do you really think you'd still be nervous about talking to girls after approaching more than 50? Even before you get to that number, you'd have figured out what conversation starters work best for you and which jokes get the most laughs. No great ladies' man got that reputation overnight, and he certainly didn't get it by talking to just one girl. So you have to be comfortable with putting yourself out there. Besides, if you remember to focus on having a good time, it'll be easy to do it the next night without losing your morale. Now, put all these tips together, and with enough practice, you'll see it's actually pretty easy to get girls, especially if you already know how to flirt. But if you struggle with that, check out my previous video on how flirting with women is easy. If you found this video helpful, remember to like, and of course, subscribe for more insightful dating advice.